1, 2, 1, 2. So much. It's great to see you this evening. I'm going to introduce the band real quick. We are Now's the Time Jazz Ensemble. Quartet tonight. We have Bill Winslow on the piano, Chris Coe on the drums, John Power on the upright bass. So that was a tune written by jazz pianist Horace Silver, the Preacher. And for this next tune, we're going to bring up one of our musical guests this evening, Debbie Weyl, who's going to be singing with us on Duke Ellington's "It Don't Mean a Thing." Welcome, Debbie.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-a, 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 do-a. It don't mean a thing, all you got to do is swing. Do-a, 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 do-a. It makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. Do-a, 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 do-a. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. It makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. I just give that everything you got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. I do what, 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 do what. Do what, 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 do what. Do what, 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 do what. Thank you, and thank you, Michael. Thank you, guys.
Debbie Weyl. 2, 1, 2, 3. Guest tonight. This tune is June Night. It's from 1924, and we've got the privilege of having Steve Retchin join us on harmonica. Steve's a terrific player, and really glad to have him with us tonight. Yes. Coe on the drums. All right. Thanks for coming to hear our music tonight. We've got one more tune before we switch gears into the second part of the evening. And so I just want to introduce the band and thank them again. Chris Coe on drums, John Power on the bass, Bill Winslow on the piano, and Debbie and Steve on the vocals and the harmonica. And we're going to finish off with another really old jazz standard by Lester Young. This is Tickle Toe. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5-minute break to just change the front of the stage and everything. So we're not going to go far, but if you need to stretch your legs or get a quick drink, and then come right back and we will continue with part 2.
So welcome back, and thank you for Now is the Time. You all did a great job. I'm Becky Jones, and I've known Michael for quite a few years. We serve on the program committee of Straw Dog Writers Guild together. So it's my pleasure to introduce Michael Favala Goldman this evening. He is a poet and obviously excellent musician and a translator of Danish literature. He's, since he gave up a carpentry career 10 years ago, he has translated something like 16 books into Danish, and including the book 3 of the Copenhagen trilogy, and that was featured on the front page of the Sunday New York Times last year, book review last year. 5 original books of poetry, including Small Sovereign, which won first place at the 2022 Los Angeles Book Festival. His work has appeared in scores of publications, including The New Yorker, the Harvard Review, and Rattle, where he was interviewed in the recent fall issue. He lives in Florence, and since 2018, he's been running a poetry critique group through a collaboration between Straw Dog Writers Guild and the Northampton Center for the Arts. So along with being a musician, a poet, a translator, a gardener, a carpenter, a father, not wife, but husband, Michael is prolific, humble, kind, steady, and a really generous mentor. So tonight he will read from his brand new poetry collection, This May Sound Familiar, which recently was selected as finalist for the American Writing Awards. So please join me in welcoming Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. It is a real privilege to be here tonight and to perform with these special musicians. This first poem is Luthier's Co-op Bar and Restaurant. St. Patrick's Day 2022. The place is deserted when we arrive to set up. Microphones and instruments on the cramped stage, flanked by congas and amps, vintage guitars on all the walls. Since last time, they've renovated. Remove the closet in the corner, so we stash our cases by the parts and repair counter. Our jackets in one of the 2 new booths with the red and blue table lanterns. By 7, people arrive. I'm in my brightest green t-shirt and my life is good baseball cap sitting on my imported German stool. With our trumpeter and pianist to my left, our bassist to my right, the drums directly behind me, making me wonder about earplugs. After a couple sound checks and a martini for the trumpeter, we launch into Now's the Time, which also happens to be the name of our jazz combo. The notes jump off the stage into the lights, which make everything else too dark to discern except for 2 women off to the left. Stephen, the sound man, knows his stuff. The balance is good, though I do still have a bit too much of drums, which is not his fault. The applause after each tune is more than polite, as is our playing, since we are the only band tonight, extending our solos to stretch our sets and our creativity. A few times, Bill pounds the keys rhythmically, nearly making me jump off my stool. John thrums his bass to the melody line of Cheesecake, and the notes dive down close to where my soul resides. Chris both drives us with his sticks and chases us when the 2-headed train of Jay on trumpet and me on clarinet start hurtling up and down our arpeggios. When the horns come back in at the B section of Dippermouth Blues, Chris has to switch to two-handed samba to keep up. And the band has somehow managed to sound like 20 pieces instead of 5. Tones, a solid wall of charging music. Tones and overtones as if New Orleans suddenly came loose and was bearing down on all of us, about to capsize, while the music keeps us afloat, plays us while we play it. The energetic momentum, actual joy. An involuntary grin on my face at the end of the tune. A surprised explosion of whoops from the applauding audience who didn't know that was about to happen, that we were all about to forget ourselves, buoyed by liberation, years of discipline, an invitation, a venue, a reason to be one specific place at one moment in time. Thank you. That poem was a finalist in the Beale Poetry Contest recently. The next section of poems are all going to be from my new collection. This may sound familiar. And an observation. Art is a way of slowing down. The velocity of experience to the stillness of the page, of the canvas, the figure. We sit, take a good look at the intersection of ourselves with the great momentum. Reality. It's not going anywhere. And it's too big to see all at once. So we examine one small area, or use a compass, or take a picture. Anything to make us feel better about being small. But that doesn't change reality. It just changes our little experience, which is also a kind of reality, but not the one I mean. Thank you. So I have a couple poems with a family theme. This one was published in the journal Lunch Ticket. Just this. My grandfather did not fight in World War II, as he worked developing radar for the Navy, until he came home different one day and was taken away for shock treatments and lithium. My father did not fight in Vietnam, as he was a young scholar with a family, until he left home one day without explanation, exiled himself from doing harm. I did not fight in the covert and distant wars of my day, as I fumbled at fathering. But I did stay. I grew along with my sons and broke the cycle. That was something. Thank you. The Visitor, a poem for the time of year. The Visitor. We used to keep Christmas decorations, napkins, bells in a big cardboard box. It was hard getting it up and down from the attic. Eventually it went soft, and we split the contents between two suitcases, the old kind without wheels. Christmas arrives now as a sort of invisible visitor, just luggage we unpack and place around. The front door, the windowsills, bookshelves, coffee table, and the unavoidable tree. When the new year turns, there's pressure to pack up our guest and relief. But did the transformation happen? Was something left behind in the darkness? Or am I still the same creature creeping along the calendar, unable to receive every visitor as Christ? This poem came into life on the Maine coast. Long Beach Cliffs. We clambered along the jagged, upturned layers of rock, like four edges of petrified books facing the sky, out to the little point, a tan cliff with blushing cheeks, looking down with a secret glee on a hidden cove, where half-submerged, shimmering bodies of stone lay like sea mammals copulating in the surf. The water swelled and receded around them, waves rising intermittently, a line approaching and rolling with a crash against the base of the cliffs, where golden green seaweed gave way to bright mossy algae and then to stone dark with wetness. The gray water frothed to white in its onslaught, sprayed foam up in all directions as the water clung to the rock, caressed every surface, entered every crevice, then flowed in sheets and rivulets back down to itself. This theater repeated in endless variation, more gently, then more passionately, the wet rocks standing their ground, the water having its way with them. Sound rising and falling like the surfaces, again and again, this arrhythmic pulse of meeting, the hard and soft dance, passed down through millennia, not weakened one iota, neither embarrassed nor shy, about power and tenderness. Thank you. In the morning, what we take for granted, my body came back from the darkness, and so did yours. So I'm going to put that book, the new book, aside and share a handful of new poems. This first poem was just named a finalist in the narrative poetry contest by the Naugatuck River Review, so I'm really thrilled about that. And it gets its title from a concept in calculus: perspective function. I thought about it many times. Then one day I just did it. Reached out and started playing with Marla's long, layered blonde hair. It was right in front of me, and Mr. DeSalis was right in front of her, so he couldn't see. It was in advanced calculus. So the class was small, and most everyone could see what I was doing, playing with Marla's hair. DeSalis going on about conic sections and functions approaching infinity. The other students never spoke about calculus or Marla's hair. Nor did Marla. I was the only student who would raise a hand and ask about the confusing parts of last night's assignment and run my fingers through Marla's hair. All year it went on like this, until the day before graduation. I ran into Marla in the hall. We exchanged yearbooks. I asked her about calculus class. She said she liked it, but it was hard to stay awake. Thank you. This next poem also comes from my teenage years. You should be so proud. I don't know what the congregation was thinking when the rabbi asked for me to approach the bima to read my part of the Torah and fulfill my bar mitzvah duty, and I wasn't there. I was in the toilet stall. I told myself I couldn't do it. Though I had practiced, I could not stand there before the hungry eyes of my grandparents, friends, and acquaintances to suffer their judgment. My father arrived. I told him to leave. Then my uncle came. I told him I wasn't doing it. He said I couldn't really get around it. If I came out, we could see how it goes. Which is when I started vomiting. I don't know what they were thinking out in the sanctuary, but when my stomach was emptied, finished convulsing, I opened the door of my cell and let myself be led to the sacrificial altar. Without a glance at the pews, I walked up the steps, over to the podium, read the opening prayers, then my Haftorah. Still not looking up, I walked back down the aisle to where my family was seated. My grandmother said, "Lift up your head, honey. Now you're a man." Thank you. This next poem comes from realizing a dream that I had harbored when I lived in Maryland about keeping honeybees. Beekeeper. Formic acid was not legal for use by a hobby beekeeper like myself. Thankfully, an environmental lab was generous enough to sell me a big brown bottle of the stuff. If you've ever been bitten by ants, Formicidae, you'll know why I wore heavy nitrile gloves when diluting formic acid in my beaker and then saturating my do-it-yourself homosote panels. The bees did not like it when I inserted the soaked panels. They buzzed loudly as if their antennae were burning. But the acid knocked off the mites that suck the bees' body fluids. Those tiny parasites infiltrate the hexagon cells and weaken the brood, give them crumpled wings. The mites fell down through the hive bottom screen to stick in the Vaseline I smeared on the graph from the extension service, so I could count how many mites, how effective the treatment, the chances of the hive surviving the winter. When I moved to Massachusetts, I sold my 4 hives, lacking sun in my new yard, not wanting to deal with bears. I watched the man strap my hives to a cart as if they were just animals, as if he had missed the mystery of their Ural Mountain heritage, their precarious life cycle, their potent cooperation when the weather is right and the locust trees in bloom. I saw he might never love them, not the way I did. Thank you. So last year I had the pleasure of giving a reading at an art gallery in Denmark, where the British painter Alan Rankel was showing his work. And his paintings were riffing on the Hudson River School of painters, who often created these expansive and meticulous nature scenes, which dwarfed the tiny people in their paintings. So this is a short poem. I'll read it first in Danish and then in English. Hudson River Skolen. En gang var naturen stor og frygtindgydende. Nu er vi store og frygtindgydende. The Hudson River School for Alan Rankel. Once nature was large and frightening. Now we are large and frightening. Thank you. This is another family-themed poem. I'm going to read 2 more, and then I'm going to pick the raffle. See how that goes. Yeah. The spring I turned 35 and took up running. Cooper River Park, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for my mother. I was standing with the river rats, everyone saying what state of marriage or divorce they were in. And I said I was divorced. When it was his turn, he said, I've never been married. And we all had a good chuckle. I left a few notes on his windshield with my phone number. He never called. I found out his last name. He was 2 years older than me and living at home with his parents. So I called him there, spoke to his mother, who thought it was a good idea we go out on a date. We saw Annie Hall, which I had seen on a date with someone else the week before. Next time, he took me to a remote restaurant in the Pine Barrens and ordered a plate of frog's legs. I overlooked that and asked him if he wanted to move in. He didn't answer. Then one day he pulled up in his orange Fiat with all his belongings and never left. Thank you. This poem was just picked up by a journal called the Kelp Journal. Jellyfish, you are. Mostly water in an odd-shaped bag with a few strings attached. Thank you. And this is also from the book. The darkness, it's getting darker now, yeah. The darkness. Plenty of darkness happens in the light of day. But night is when the stars shine through. Thank you. And as a music finale, I'm going to play a theme based on a poem by the 19th century English writer and artist William Blake. This is Jerusalem. Take a breath. Yeah. I feel like I'm like 6 inches off the ground, so I can't really play.